Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting for October 16th, 2018. I'd like to welcome all who are in attendance with us today. And at this time, I'd like to ask the clerk to read the roll.
Director Hendricks, Director Richardson, Director Pack, Director Hines, Director Wright, Director Wyrick, Director Compuris, Director Fortson, Director Adcock, Vice Mayor Webb, Mayor Studler.
Here. Let me call on our City Director, Irma Hendricks, for our invocation, please. You're on.
Would you bow, please? My prayer has always been, the 12 years I've been on this board, is to let the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in God's sight. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're very pleased this evening to have with us tonight Dr. Cam Patterson, the head of the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. Welcome, Dr. Patterson. We're certainly happy to have you here and look forward to hearing what your vision for the medical center and the hospital are in the future. If you'd come forward. Thank you.
Mayor Studler, Vice Mayor Webb, and members of the board, I appreciate the chance to spend a few minutes visiting with you and updating you on the state of UAMS and where we plan to go in the future. I think that you all want me to start with the news of last year and update you on our finances and how UAMS is doing. It was a rough year for UAMS. We lost 264 of our best employees, and we cut 600 positions out of our budget. It was a painful process, but it was something that needed to be done to right-size UAMS. So let me put in perspective where we were last year. We are on a July to June calendar year, fiscal year. Last July, we were projected as an entity to lose almost $40 million. By the time I was looking at this job in December, that $40 million loss had grown to $72 million and was an existential threat to UAMS. But with the hard work that Acting Chancellor Stephanie Gardner and the leadership team did, and making some very tough decisions, we closed out fiscal year 2018, which ended June 30th, with a deficit of less than $15 million. So a dramatic improvement, not where we need to be, but definitely better than where we started and definitely better than what our worst fears were. And I'm happy to tell you that the budget for 2019, the year that started July 1, is balanced for the first time in at least 5 years at UAMS. And that's good news for all of us because it puts us in a position to begin to grow again, to begin to invest in programs that benefit the city of Little Rock and the state of Arkansas. We are the only one in the state of Arkansas that does many things, or the only comprehensive stroke center recently accredited. We are the only sickle cell center in the state of Arkansas. We're the only liver transplant program in the state of Arkansas. We are the only cystic fibrosis program in the state of Arkansas. We are the only cord blood program in the state of Arkansas. And we need to continue to grow and innovate if we're going to continue to fulfill our mission for the state. So I want to tell you just a couple of things that we are working on very assiduously right now. Top of mind for us right now is getting designation by the National Cancer Institute as a designated comprehensive cancer center. There are 70 designated cancer centers in the United States. There are none in the state of Arkansas. And we believe that we are poised with a little more work and a little more growth to become the 71st. What would that do to the state of Arkansas and the city of Little Rock? If UAMS becomes designated by the National Cancer Institute, that will increase the amount of revenues that UAMS puts into the local economy by $70 million a year. Getting NCI designation will allow us to grow the number of employees by 1,564. Getting NCI designation will allow us to provide clinical trials and new drugs and treatments for patients that have not yet been available for anyone in the state of Arkansas. We are committed to recruiting a new director for the Winthrop P. Rockefeller Cancer Institute, and we are committed to providing the resources to that director so that that director will lead us down the pathway to get NCI designation for UAMS within the next 5 years. We are also committed to the idea of digital health, and that using digital technology to improve healthcare will put us at the leading edge. Now, we have enormous challenges in healthcare delivery, not just across the state, but even here in Little Rock, with people who have difficulty gaining access to healthcare. Digital health will allow us to shrink the state, to make sure that every individual, no matter where they are, no matter what resources that they have, can access a world-class specialist based at UAMS anytime that they need to. It will ensure that, for example, using blockchain technology, a pharmacist never has to worry about what medications a patient is on and can always be sure that patients are taking the right medications and only the right medications. And digital technology, if we are a national leader in this area, which I predict we will be in 24 to 36 months, will be a significant impact on the economy of the city of Little Rock. We've already got great digital technology in the financial sector here. They've demonstrated that we can do this in the city of Little Rock, and UAMS is committed to be a party to bringing digital health to the state of Arkansas and providing an economic benefit to the people of Little Rock. And lastly, I would say that we remain strongly committed to our mission to provide service to everyone who needs help, regardless of their means. That mission will never be superseded. We continue to work with our partners across the city and across the state to make sure that if you need a liver transplant, if you need a kidney transplant, if you need heart surgery, if nobody else will take care of you, we will do that. And we are especially committed to our neighborhood to the south. We have the 12th Street Clinic. The 12th Street Clinic needs to grow. We need to put more time and effort into that. We need to think about how we can provide more and better services. More than that, we need to think about how we can contribute to that community in other ways. And I think there's much more that we can do from the perspective of a major employer within the city to contribute to that neighborhood. So I would be delighted to spend hours talking to you about UAMS, but I know you have a busy schedule. I want to thank you for the invitation to be here, but more important, for your support. And I want to ensure that you understand that UAMS has served this community for 140 years, and I'm convinced that it's going to serve this community for at least another 140 years. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Patterson. What a great report. First of all, I want to compliment you on your deficit reduction analysis. That's quite an accomplishment, and I know it's been a struggle, and I know that I guess maybe you provide, or you get the least amount of money of any state medical institution in the country from our legislature. I hope that we can improve that, and if there's anything we can do to assist in that, I want you to know that we're here to help you on that. And with the session coming up, I know you're going to be out there very active, and I'll be happy to assist in any way possible. What UAMS provides is truly unique. Certainly, everything you mentioned, plus the trauma center. We could use that extra $70 million in the economy and an extra 1,500 citizens coming to work here. So thank you very much. I hope you can shorten that timeline up on when we can become number 71 in terms of cancer care.
We'll do our best.
Thank you. Let's see. We got Dr. Patterson. There's a few more people want to tell you what a great job you're doing. Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Stola, and thank you very much, Dr. Patterson. I just want to say that, as you know, there were a lot of anxious moments that people in Little Rock had when the deficit first came up and the layoffs came about. And the value of UAMS to our city and state really is almost immeasurable. And you've been very open, and I appreciate the time that you've taken to visit with me and others before tonight. And as somebody who's spent way more time at the Cancer Institute than I would have preferred, I'm particularly excited to hear about the fact that you're going for this designation, and that would mean so much to a lot of the people that I met when I was there who need access to these trials and these opportunities. So you have made me really reassured in the last few months by the things that you and your team are doing. Thank you.
We won't let you down.
Thank you.
Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Patterson, thank you for your presentation. And as I mentioned to you briefly, I'm certainly encouraged by your willingness to increase the size of the footprint in the 12th Street area. And I also mentioned, and Mr. Moore can attest to this, when we started the 12th Street Revitalization Project back in August 2008, Tom Butler at UMS provided some of the funding money to help us hire some consultants, and Tom was a part of our steering committee, and I think that your involvement with that 12th Street project helped us in 2010 win the Arkansas Planning Association Urban Design Award, and I think that was part because of your involvement and presence in the community, what we're trying to do to enhance and improve the community. So I want to thank you for that, and I look forward to working with you on further work around that project and other areas of work in that community.
Thank you. We see it as a long-term investment.
Yes, sir, we do too. I hope it is.
Director Hendricks, you're recognized, please.
You. Thanks for your report. I'm not like my other colleagues, but I can tell you that in 1960, I was one of the first black scrub nurses in surgery. So I wanted to share that with you. But I also want to know if Mr. Rigsby had anything to say. You should.
Thank you, Director Hendricks. I look forward to working with all of you, and we will be following up with you to schedule meetings with Dr. Patterson. He's eager to visit with you and find out ways in which we all can help. So we appreciate City Manager and the Mayor and Vice Mayor and all of you and your support as we go forward. So we will be following up, and thank you for this opportunity.
You know, I wouldn't dare sit here and not hear from you. Thank you.
Director Wright.
Thank you. Dr. Patterson, thank you so much for your presentation. I am of particular interest in your stroke center.
Yes, ma'am.
I know so many families and personal friends that are impacted by stroke, and the fact that you are the only stroke center is very, very important to me. And so I'd like to get some more information out to citizens about the danger signs and how they can hopefully preempt some of this, because the damage can be so horrifying. And I have several of my friends that are there on the mend, but it's just disheartening to see people that were once so vibrant and then they're limping, and then I have to think, well, Lord, thank you, they're alive. But the stroke center is of particular interest to me. The entire hospital, but that stroke center, because I'm looking at these people's faces and I see them all the time.
Yeah. If I may say something about that, we are very proud to be designated as a comprehensive stroke center, but we are not stopping there.
Good.
And we are making plans for what I hope will be the first mobile stroke unit in
Great.
a rural state. So a mobile stroke unit is an ambulance that has a CT scanner and a nurse who's capable of delivering clot-busting drugs right at the site where the patient is when they make their first call.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We've done this in New York. When every minute that you delay treating stroke, you lose 2 million, million with an M, neurons. We showed in New York that we could reduce the time to treatment by about 40 minutes. If we can do the same thing here in Little Rock, we'll be the first rural state to have a mobile stroke program, and we'll be saving more lives and making sure that more people survive the stroke totally normal.
Is that a long-term plan, or is it in the foreseeable future?
We've got a team working on this right now.
Okay. Oh,
Yes,
that would be wonderful. I'm just thinking of two friends that I know personally could have really benefited from that. They survived, but they have limps, and yeah. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Director Hendricks, did you have something else? Okay, Director Hines.
Dr. Patterson, it's interesting in that mobile stroke. Is that something you would work in conjunction with, say, our local ambulance authority
Oh, yes.
to implement
So
with MEMS? I know we have good relationship with all of the hospitals, so.
It's a world-class program that they have there, and we are in close conversation with them about this to make sure that it's completely integrated.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Patterson, and anything we can do to help, please let us know.
Thanks, Mayor Stodler.
Okay, we can now move on to the items on our agenda. The consent agenda consists of 10 items. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read those consent agenda items.
The consent agenda consists of a motion to approve the minutes of the October 1st, 2018 Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting, a resolution to set November 5th, 2018 as the date of public hearing on the request to appeal the Planning Commission's action in denying a variance request for the Breeding Additional Preliminary Final Plat located at 7718 Henderson Road, Pulaski County, Arkansas, and for other purposes. A resolution authorized the city manager to enter into a contract with Ed Warren Specialty of Texas in the amount of $60,054.76 for the purchase of the 2019 Little Rock Marathon participant and volunteer shirts, and for other purposes. A resolution authorized the city manager to enter into a contract with Advanced Exercise in an amount not to exceed $286,575 for the purchase of fitness equipment for the Southwest Community Center and the Dunbar Community Center, and for other purposes. A resolution authorized the city manager to enter into a contract with Oakley Fertilizer Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the purchase of rock salt for the Public Works Department, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to award a contract to JCI Construction in an amount not to exceed $356,628.06 for the Arkansas River Trail Riverfront Drive projects improvements, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a third extension of the contract with VSP in an amount not to exceed $135,000 for group vision insurance for a period beginning January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield in an amount not to exceed $500,000 for group dental insurance for a period beginning January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a third renewal of the contract with Metropolitan Life Insurance Company in an amount not to exceed $520,000 for group life and AD&D insurance for a period beginning January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, to include a clause which permits the city to renew the contract at its option for 4 additional years, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to extend the agreement with United Healthcare in an amount not to exceed $13,300,000 to provide group health insurance for city employees for a period beginning January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, and for the purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
There is a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The consent agenda is adopted, and we can now move on to our grouped items.
Mayor,
I have a couple of cards on item 12. So, Madam Clerk, if you'll read Resolution 11, and we'll vote on that first, and then we'll move on to 13 and 14, and then we'll go back to item 12.
A resolution to change the name of that portion of West Fifth Street located west of South Rodney Parham Road to West Capitol Avenue, and for the purposes.
Move to suspend the rules and, move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The resolution is adopted. We'll do the grouped items 13 and 14 now, please. I guess we can do 13, 14, and 15.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Shackelford Canis, revised short form PDC, located at 10,721 Canis Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes. An ordinance to transfer the administration of retirement coverage for eligible members of the Little Rock Firemen's Relief and Pension Fund to the Arkansas Local Police and Retirement System, and to authorize the city manager to enter into an irrevocable agreement with the Arkansas Local Police and Fire Retirement System to declare an emergency, and for the purposes. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place these two ordinances on second reading. All in favor indicate
Oh,
by
I
saying
forgot
aye.
to read 15, I'm sorry.
That's okay, we'll take care of it in a minute.
Okay.
All in favor of putting it on second reading indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Second reading, please.
Okay. An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Shackelford Canis, revised short form PDC, located at 10,721 Canis Road. An ordinance to transfer the administration of retirement coverage for eligible members of the Little Rock Firemen's Relief and Pension Fund to the Arkansas Local Police and Fire Retirement System, and to authorize the city manager to enter into irrevocable agreement with the Arkansas Local Police and Fire Retirement System to declare an emergency. Second reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Shackelford Canis, revised short form PDC, located at 10,721 Canis Road. An ordinance to transfer the administration of retirement coverage for eligible members of the Little Rock Firemen's Relief and Pension Fund to the Arkansas Local Police and Fire Retirement System, and to authorize the city manager to enter into an irrevocable agreement with the Arkansas Local Police and Fire Retirement System to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
Okay, Director Hendricks, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, on 14 for Mr. Moore, who did you meet with? You know, we hear all this good stuff. Police and fire, was that the chief, the assistant chief, or the
No, ma'am.
membership?
There's a board that I chair, and actually we have 4 members of the board that are here. If y'all would stand up and let us recognize you all. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you all over the past 16 years. This will be our last meeting as of last week. But we did this in collaboration with not only the board, but with the members of the retirees. We had a meeting where about, I believe, 75 attended, and they were all overwhelmingly in support. So this is a great thing for our retirees. This also comes with a $250 increase and the commitment to come back in 3 years to look at an additional benefit increase.
My second question, did these gentlemen meet with the total membership?
Again, we had a membership meeting.
Employees, the employees.
No, this is a closed retirement fund, so these
Okay.
are all retirees.
Okay,
and-
so it's not those persons who are working regular?
Correct.
These are retiring, okay.
Well, one is still, but that's
really?
designated by the agreement. But
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore.
and I don't know, if one of y'all, Bernie or somebody, want to come up and say something. If Chief Sherwood, some of you all would remember Bernie and.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I appreciate getting an opportunity. My name is Bernie Sherwood. I spent 33 years in the fire service, and the guys behind me have just about the same amount of time. And we certainly appreciate the great working relationship that we had with Mr. Moore and the other city staff that assisted us. And there's folks there from the city attorney's office, and we have the finance folks there, and everybody has been great to work for us. They've been wonderful. They do everything that we ask, and we're happy, you know, with the agreement that we've come up. And again, Mr. Moore has always been good to us and been very open in our discussions, and we certainly appreciate the board support. And you know, and again, as all of us, we miss what we did in the fire service, but we're still, you know, firefighters at heart. And
Is either one of the fellows a policeman? I'm concerned.
no, ma'am, all firefighters.
Okay, all firefighters.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
see, the reason why I ask for the listeners is police is listed in this information, okay? So I don't,
Yeah, the system
ask
that we're going to
questions.
is a statewide system that is police and fire. They're all grouped together.
Okay.
And so that's going to be the folks that administer our program now.
okay, thank you.
But again, we certainly appreciate y'all's support and thank you for everything that you guys have done for us.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, we've had the 3 readings of the ordinance, the 2 ordinances. All in favor of the passages of ordinance 13 and 14 indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The ordinances have passed, and on the emergency clause on ordinance number 14, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The emergency clause is also passed. Now we'll go back to item 12, and let me ask for the first reading of the ordinance, please. We're going to do 12 first.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Powell Brothers Revised Short Form PCD, located at 1308 South Bowman Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes first reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on second reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, saying nay. Second reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Powell Brothers Revised Short Form PCD, located at 1308 South Bowman Road, second reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, saying nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a plan zone development, establish a planned commercial district titled Powell Brothers Revised Short Form PCD, located at 1308 South Bowman Road, third and final reading.
Okay. I've got two directors who wish to speak about this, and I also have two citizens that would wish to speak. Do you want to speak before or after you hear from the? Okay, Director Hines, go ahead, please.
I don't know if this will be for John or Jamie. I've got a question on South Bowman. Part of it, I think, abuts this PCD on road. It's probably going to be a Master Street improvement issue. Yeah. Jamie, there's three areas along South Bowman. One of them is on the adjacent property to the north. The second and third areas, I think, are on the property line between this one and the one to the north. And then there's one on the southern end. It's all on the western side where we haven't required any of these adjacent they've all widened the road, but in these three specific sections, they haven't widened them.
Well, that's
so
correct.
Because there's utilities and other stuff in there. Why are we, I guess my question is this application going to finish those improvements so we can get some more stacking on Bowman there till we do the major improvements?
When this come through previously, there was approval that those improvements would go in when they expanded the existing building or put in, there's a new building on the layout. Scott, if you bring up the site plan, we'll see if the sketch.
Right. I saw the new building on
Yeah,
there.
it's on the new building's on that, that very far southwest end back there.
Right.
What you're seeing, that little area that the arrow is pointing to, is not an expansion of the building, but an outdoor play area for the pets. What we recommended and what they agreed to was when they, to be completed with the expansion of that existing building or that new building goes in, or at the time that South Bowman is planned to be constructed as a public project. So that is the stipulations for the widening of Bowman through that area.
Okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean they're doing payment? I know they're not doing anything now, but are they doing payment in lieu? Because I know we've got a project coming up on South Bowman.
They have an option to also do that too, so they may elect to do a payment in lieu of the construction.
Okay.
At that time that we do the project.
You know, this just creates issues when we get away from our boundary street ordinance in an area where if we had asked them to do these improvements at the time like we do everybody else, we could have added left-hand turn movement on South Bowman onto Canis. But since it's kind of the hodgepodge, so I just wanted to make sure we were covering our bases.
I
Thank you.
believe we did.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Purtle, you're recognized, please.
Mayor Stodela, Vice Mayor Webb, members of the board, I'm here to speak on behalf of Justin and Mandy, owners of a business called Hounds Lounge. It's a premier facility, and what we're looking for is an opportunity to expand to a new location to fulfill the needs of the members of the city of Little Rock who have requested and are in need of extra space for boarding and grooming of these animals that Justin and Mandy take care of. Hounds Lounge was originally designed because there were not any facilities in Little Rock that met the needs that Mr. Harris wanted for his own personal animals. So Justin, who I've known for 28 years, took a lot of time, spent a lot of effort 2 years, going to multiple locations in many states to pick out what would be required to fulfill the needs of a facility that would be able to support his personal animals. And as a direct result of that, Hounds Lounge came about. Justin and Mandy are very hardworking. They're very educated, and they fulfill a need. And there are numerous people in this city that are very happy with the existing location in Riverdale. Justin came to me because I have experience in cleaning and sanitation products, and I've spent 30 years career dealing with Tyson Foods, the largest provider of protein for human consumption and also the largest provider of protein for animal feeds in North America. So the facility is clean, it's modern, it's not like anything that currently exists in the state. And Justin and Mandy are very, very capable of running this business, and I seek your consideration in improving their application to extend their business into a second location a little bit further west from where they're currently located. Are there any questions?
Dr. Adcock, do you have any question for the applicant? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and thank you for starting with a prayer, and I really appreciate the Pledge of Allegiance. I think that's very nice. Thank you.
Okay, the next card we have is from Betty Beck.
I take my dog to Hounds Lounge, and
If you'd pull that microphone forward, thank you.
Okay, my name is Betty Beck, and I take my dog to Hounds Lounge, and it is a wonderful facility. I trust him with my dog, and that says a lot. I think Little Rock has a need for another facility. I love it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Beck.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Adcock, you're recognized.
Yes, my
please.
question is for Mr. Collins, please. Mr. Collins, can you tell us what neighborhoods was notified of this, please? I see from your map here that it does not touch any neighborhoods, but was the neighborhoods notified?
The John Barrow Neighborhood Association was also notified.
John Barrow was the only one?
That is the only one that was notified.
Why was Cherry Creek and Brody Creek not notified? Is it not?
That's Cherry Creek.
Okay, how about Cherry Creek, which is behind it?
No. They were not notified.
I'm sorry, she was
That
talking.
association, they were not notified.
They was not notified.
No, all the property located within the 200 feet was notified of the property.
Well, Director Hines said because Brody Creek was 3 miles away, but I think John Barrow was probably further than 3 miles away.
Well, that was a, request for that ward area that they be notified on any, development that happens in that area.
So John Barrow is notified of anything that happens in Ward 6?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so if a neighborhood wants to be notified of anything in their ward, they can just contact you?
Yes, we have started to compile the list and get more digital, and if we have that contact information in email, we will notify them.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Director Hendricks, yes.
Jamie. Did I understand you to say that you followed the rules and regulations as far
Yes.
as distance?
That distance was set, that we notify all property owners within that, and if somebody requests notifications, we will send notifications out if we have contact information.
And how many persons were opposed to what's about to happen?
We had no registered objectors at the Planning Commission, and I have not received any emails or letter in opposition.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the questions and comments on ordinance 12. All in favor of the passage of the ordinance indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ordinance is passed. We can now move on to ordinance number 15. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to authorize the issuance of limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds to pledge tax revenue sufficient to pay the principal of and and interest on the bonds, to prescribe other matters relating to the bonds, to declare an emergency, and for the purposes first reading.
Reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on second reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Second reading, please.
It's the same title, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, hold that thought. Yeah, it just doesn't have prescribing other matters.
Is there a question?
Okay. Chef was looking at me funny. An ordinance to authorize the issuance of limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds, to pledge tax revenue sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, to prescribe other matters relating to the bonds, to declare an emergency, second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place in third and final reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
An ordinance to authorize the issuance of limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds, to pledge tax revenue sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, to prescribe other matters relating to the bonds, to declare an emergency, and for the purposes third and final reading.
All right, let me note for the record that the second reading also included a reading on the emergency clause as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, all right, we've had the three readings on the ordinance and the emergency clause.
Mayor, I have a question. Our lights were
Okay,
not
go
on.
ahead.
I find here where, what this money is being spent for. Can you please, or Mr. Carpenter, would you please tell us what this money is being spent for?
Director Hancock, this is additional monies from the bonds that were approved before. They're basically for capital improvements. The specific items, Mr. Russell is here to discuss, who is the bond counsel.
Street and drainage, this is the second issue of the $110 million that we were doing.
Is it normal for the interest to go down so much the last few years as listed on here? It starts out 5%, but then down at the bottom it goes to 2.50%.
I would defer to Mr. Russell for that.
Okay.
Director Hancock,
Yes.
Shep Russell, I'm your bond attorney for this issue.
Yes, I
It
didn't
is
see
not,
any.
it is not normal for the rates to go down like that, but this bond is being prepaid out of the surplus tax collections. So all the property taxes come in, we're collecting more than what the debt service is a year. We take the surplus and we pay the last maturing bonds, and so that the final maturity will be paid off early, and that means the city will get a lower interest rate on the end.
It'd be nice if it was 2.50 all the way.
Well, the people from Stevens are here if you'd like to talk, but they sell bonds at premiums and discounts, and the yields, I'll let them, Leanne Burnett will tell you what the yields are in each one of those years, and you'll see that they do, the first year is very low yield, so.
Okay, and also, before you leave, Mr. Russell, did you have a list of the projects these bonds are being financed for?
I do not have a list. There's so much money that's allowed for streets, so much money that's allowed for drainage within the ballot categories, and so, the city
So
staff.
Mr. Moore, this is no sidewalks, this is nothing but strictly streets and drainage?
Yeah, so this is the third round that we talk about, where we went out to all of the wards and then went back out to the wards and then you all adopted. So these are the projects that you all have adopted as far as the third round of funding.
Okay, and how much is this total?
45.
45
The
million?
first one was 55 and this one's 45. And remember, we split it up because we had the 110 million bond issue, we had the sales tax right before that, and we felt that, and the board agreed that we did the first year projects and then we would do three-year cycles. So this is the money for the third cycle in addition to the sales tax.
Okay, this third cycle will not start for another year?
No, I mean, you all have adopted it, and we're moving forward with design and engineering. So by the time the bond issues, and then, so we would, those projects are already starting.
Have we been out to the citizens to tell them which projects we're going to be doing?
Yes, ma'am. Remember, we went out with the initial list of everything that had been submitted, and then we came back and sat down and said, okay, each ward gets X, and then we worked with each of the board members and went back to the citizens and said, here are the projects we're recommending, and the board adopted it earlier this year.
Okay, so everyone knows that these are coming, and that's what this $45 million is for.
Correct.
And Bruce, this is, for the most part, we went to each ward, correct? And these were actually recommendations
From the citizenry.
From the wards, yeah, from the
Right.
citizenry. So, I mean, they had involvement on the front end. So it's not like we're doing something at them or to them. We're doing something with them. This
Correct.
came to us from them.
Correct.
Thanks, Mr. Moore.
Leanne Burnett, welcome.
Thank you,
You want to
Mayor.
explain a little bit about how these bond issues are established?
Sure, thank you very much. Board Member Adcock, I appreciate your question. The bonds have a final stated maturity of April 1 of 2023, but there are different maturities within the bond issue. So you have serial maturities in 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, and then you have a term bond in 25 and a term bond in 28. And we structured it that way so that the 2028 bond will basically go away first. Like Mr. Russell said, we've actually structured it 2-to-1. So for every dollar in debt service that's owed on the bonds, we expect $2 in property tax revenue to come in. So the extra dollar is used to pay off the older maturities first. But each maturity of a bond issue has a different yield. So in your ordinance, there's a coupon, and there's a general expectation that interest rates are going to rise. So as kind of a protective measure, managers of investment portfolios want a higher coupon. So for example, the first maturity, your ordinance shows a 5% coupon, but we actually sold that. They paid more than $1 per bond. They paid 101.05. So the actual yield, the actual earnings to that buyer is only 1.89%. So it has a stated coupon of 5, but the actual yield is only 1.89. Overall, the true interest cost for the entire bond issue is 2.62%.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Leanne.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
All right, I think that answers everybody's questions. All in favor of the passage of ordinance number 15, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ordinance is passed. And on the emergency clause, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The emergency clause is also passed. We can now move on to our separate items, resolution number 16. Madam Clerk, if you'll read the resolution, please.
A resolution to approve the extension of sewer services outside the city limits to Rusty Tractor Vineyards to authorize entry into a pre-annexation agreement and for the purposes.
Move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you get to, why are we doing services outside the city limits? Why?
I can,
Just explain it to the public.
I think
Director
we can,
Hendricks, the property is just barely outside
Well, why did it say outside? I didn't say
because
barely.
it's currently outside the city.
You should have said it, Bruce.
The individual.
That's all. If it's part of it, just forget it, okay? I'm just one of these folks that, I'm tired of sitting here listening at a bunch of, okay?
does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
All right, all in favor of the passage of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, saying nay. The resolution is passed. Okay, we can now move on to item 17, first reading of the ordinance, please.
An ordinance to establish standards and specifications for the restoration of excavations and cuts in streets and alley rights-of-way, to provide for a permit process, to establish fees, penalties, and permanent restoration reimbursement costs, to provide for the administration and enforcement of the process, and for the purposes first reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on second reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Second reading, please.
An ordinance to establish standards and specifications for the restoration of excavations and cuts in streets and or alley rights-of-way, to provide for a permit process, to establish fees, penalties, and permanent restoration reimbursement costs, to provide for the administration and enforcement of the process. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to establish standards and specifications for the restoration of excavations and cuts in streets or alley rights-of-way, to provide for a permit process, to establish fees, penalties, and a permanent restoration reimbursement cost, to provide for the administration and enforcement of the process. Third and final reading.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Mr. Moore, were we able to add any penalties or a warranty on any work, any patchwork that's done?
Sure. Let me ask Mr. Honeywell to come forward and talk about what's already in place. John?
Okay.
Thank you, Bruce. Mayor, Vice Mayor, board members, Director Wright, our existing ordinance has a bonding requirement in it already. What that does is the contractor or the utility, the person that's doing the street cut is required to provide the city with a bond that ensures that the work is done correctly. And then if there's issues with it in the future, and typically what we do with those for the street cuts is have those last for a year.
Okay.
So we have the ability to go back and contact that bonding company to have them provide the funding or do the work to repair it if the utility or the person that did the cut does not repair it if it fails.
Okay.
We sort of use that calling of that bond as a penalty in itself. Most of I don't think we've had to do it at all.
I'm familiar with bonds.
Yeah, they don't like to have those us calling their bonding companies.
Yeah, so as long as we're doing that, then we're good.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Director Campuris, you're recognized, please.
John, let me ask you a couple questions.
Certainly.
Number one, tell me how many people you have on your staff or you'll have to hire to be able to go and make sure these cuts are done and these cuts are evaluated in a timely fashion and adjudicated as whether they're adequate or not.
We currently have 3 full-time employees that this is what they do, is inspect street cuts. With going to this program where they have to do the permit and that time period starts with the penalty associated with it, we feel like that's going to give those 3 employees the ability to go to the locations that are currently have active permits and be able to inspect those and make sure those are being done in a timely manner. Currently, the way this permitting process functions is a utility can come in and do 100 permits at one time. And then it can be 6 months before they start working on any of those particular permits. So that causes our inspectors to have to constantly go around and look at locations to see if that work's occurring. With the permit penalty and time frame associated with it, part of this new one, it gives us an actual active list that they can go out and look at and provide them the ability to go do that in that timely manner.
And secondly, how are you going to personally assess if this is a successful program or not?
I think part of what, number one, it's going to be, are we going to have these situations where we have these, continue to have areas that are cut and not repaired in a timely manner? If that's still occurring, I think it's something that we'll have to go back and look at again. Is the penalty enough? Is the incentive there to get the utilities to do this work in a timely manner? Are we able to inspect it in a timely manner ourselves? If we don't have enough employees, if we have so much work going on in the city that we have to hire more people, that is something that we'll have to look at and assess as this starts moving forward.
But I also think we should see you all should see a decrease in calls, and we should see a decrease in calls. I mean, that's as far as the work not being done appropriately. And I think that's why John is talking about now we're able to track when they get those permits and when they're supposed to be completed.
Well, I'm going to vote for it just because I think y'all are making a good faith effort. But is there a way, Tom, Tom? Is there a way to put in here something that says a year from now, we have to have a full evaluation of this program as far as its success that has to come back to the board?
Director Pierce, you have done that before in 2 or 3 ways. You've either just stated that that's what you wanted, or you have added a section to the ordinance that said this matter will be reviewed 1 year from today, the date of passage.
Then put it in someplace that I think we ought to, in 1 year from now, have this program evaluated. And we can all then anecdotally say how many calls we've gotten or not gotten and how this is working. I mean, I think that I'll go along with y'all on this and see if it works. But I want a time certain that we're not all sitting up here saying things are not working well. And if we have a time certain, then we all know, then you know that we're going to know that. And I think that you ought to internally monitor, figure out a way to monitor complaints during that period of time.
We certainly will.
Do I add that as an amendment to this,
Yeah,
Tom?
Director Pierce, I'd make it a new section 10 and then number 10, 11, 12, and 13 to 11, 12, 13, and 14. And the new section 10 would read, this ordinance shall be reviewed by the Board of Directors at the first meeting in November 2019.
That's a motion by Director Campiris, and I hear a second. Any discussion? Go ahead, Director Richardson, on the motion. Oh, it's on the motion. You have it on the motion? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Dean, I'll be in support of that amendment, but is there anything that prohibits us from including language that makes this an annual evaluation? And if so, would there be any additional cost? I mean, I think that, Dean, you will, I agree with your idea of looking at us coming back in a year from now and seeing if we've been successful, but I mean, if we hadn't been, it may take us a little bit longer than 1 year.
I think in a year, we just say, then we move from a year from now. I just want to have something time certain.
My only, if you're okay with it, my only amendment to your amendment would add language that says this would be an annual evaluation, and if the manager and the mayor and Tom doesn't see any problem with that, I'd like to offer that as an amendment to your amendment, Dean, if you're okay with that.
That's fine with me.
Director Richardson, I can amend the language. I would like to add this caution to the board, and that is that you're putting into place an ordinance.
Sure.
And you know, I mean, I put the first meeting in November. This is the last meeting in October. I wanted to make sure there was plenty of time. But I've been around too long to know that things happen, and I would hate to get to the situation where, for one reason or another, we couldn't get to it in that year, and now we don't have any ordinance. So I think maybe the better thing to do, if the board would consider this, is to keep it with the amendment as it is, and then that amendment can be amended a year from now to set the new date.
That makes sense. I got you. That's fair.
Okay, Director Hennis, do you wish to speak about the motion on the amendment?
I can tell you my light was on.
Well, I understand. You want to speak
Yeah.
about want to speak about the ordinance, you want to speak about the amendment?
I wanted to speak about the fact that the questions that Computers was asking John should have been addressed to Mr. Moore, but I don't think Mr. John hires, does he? Sometimes we get up here and we be talking, you know what I'm saying? And I think this is a habit up here. But he was saying to John, what would do if you could hire, blah, blah. He doesn't hire. He does the hiring.
I didn't
That's
hear-
what I was
didn't
talking
hear
about. This
anything
was
about
way
hiring or firing
before
anybody.
the amendment. What he was asking Honeywell, what could he do? Those questions should go to Bruce. You know, I don't sit up here like a dumbbell, you know, and just agree with everything that's going on. I have for 12 years, but I'm tired. That's all I had to say.
Very good. All right. So, there's been a motion made to amend the ordinance to put in the language of a review on the first meeting in November of next year. All in favor of the amendment indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The amendment has been passed. Now, a vote on the ordinance as amended. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ordinance as amended has been approved. Director Hines.
Mayor, I move that we go into executive session to make appointments and reappointments to various city boards and commissions.
All right, is there a second? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. We'll be back shortly. We are in executive session. We return from executive session. The first board that we have is the Americans with Disabilities Act Citizen Grievance Committee, and I would like to appoint Laura Stanley to the architect position. There's a motion and a second. All in favor of confirming her appointment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And we will re-advertise the individual with a disability and the service provider position. On the Community Housing Advisory Board, we have 5 positions open. We had one individual apply, Robert Richardson, who I would like to appoint to the Real Estate Business Community.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And Mr. Richardson is confirmed, and we'll re-advertise the additional 4 positions. On the City Beautiful Commission, we have We have 5 positions open, and we have 2 people seeking reappointment. And I'd like to reappoint Michael Harvey and Steve Homeyer to the 2 of the at-large positions.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor of confirming their appointments indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. They are confirmed, and we'll re-advertise the additional 3 positions. On the Housing Board of Adjustment Appeals, 4 positions open. We have 1 person who applied, Roderick Wells. I'd like to appoint Mr. Wells.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of confirming Mr. Wells' appointment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Mr. Wells is appointed. And on the Racial and Cultural Diversity Commission, we have 3 positions available. A Ward 4 representative and an at-large representative who we have applications for. I'd like to appoint Jerry Bailey to the at-large position and Michael Harris to the Ward 4 representative position.
So move.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All in favor of confirming their appointment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And we will re-advertise the Ward 2 position. And that completes the appointments for this round. Madam Clerk, there's several there to re-advertise, if we can get those out. And perhaps we can talk about how we get that sent out to maybe our neighborhood associations and some others to make sure that we're getting some bigger and broader exposure to it. If you'll visit with me, we'll talk about how we can get that done. All right, very good. We have now citizen communication. We have 1 card from Mr. Russ Rakop, who wants to talk about some specific police incidences that have caused him questions about the leadership in the police department. Mr.
And in
Rakop.
the city government. Thank you, Mayor. At the September 4th board meeting, I brought up the situation discussed in the Washington Post this past weekend, the one about the lying snitch and the road undercover officers fabricating drug buys. I even handed out documents that dealt with the matter to all of you on the board before I spoke. And you can watch that on the city's YouTube channel or a clip that I made of my presentation that's on my YouTube channel. So I was quite surprised to read what Director Wright told Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times, that she only found out about it over the weekend. No doubt, after reading the email that City Attorney Carpenter sent out about the board, to the board members concerning the story. Since I spoke about this last month, the prosecuting attorney has dropped a case which involved the lying snitch and the rogue officers, citing Brady issues. We've also had several officers suspended since then due to illegal activity, and one has been charged with a criminal offense. Last month, I remarked that the police department was imploding. Well, this past weekend, it exploded. And these dirty secrets, the LRPD leadership and that the city manager, Bruce Moore, has tried to keep the public from knowing has gotten out now, and it's become public knowledge. This board and the mayor need to request an independent outside investigation of the Little Rock Police Department and ask that a special prosecutor be appointed to review all the cases that were touched by this lying snitch and these rogue officers. Don't leave this for the new mayor and the new city board to deal with. Clean up the mess that occurred during your watch and leave your legacy untainted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rakop. I do know that the dismissal or the null process of that case was done because of the questionability of the veracity of the confidential informant. So I believe our prosecutor's office is well aware of that, and that was why, from my understanding, the case was null prossed, which I think would suggest the integrity of the system in that particular case.
So, Mayor, his reference to, I think he kept saying lying snitch. He's talking about a CI. Is that we're talking about? And with respect to that, and not commenting on the leadership within the police department or the city, are there any that we can speak of, that you can speak of, Tom, any litigation, current or potential, that that may be a result of this involvement of this CI? Are we putting any, I'm plainly put, are we being put in any kind of position of liability with respect to engaging this CI in some of the cases that he's been involved in, he or she?
Director Richardson, the CI that's being discussed dealt in a case with Mr. Talley. Mr. Talley has sued the city, and that is ongoing investigation. The fact that the CI had not been honest in the past was brought to the attention of the prosecutor by the LRPD, and that's why the charges were dropped. The information is, no, I don't think there's an issue.
So your best guesstimation then, would that have any impact, either pro or con, with respect to the lawsuit that's been filed? The information we're just talking about right now?
As I said in my statement yesterday, I'm not going to try a lawsuit in the press. I'm not going to try it on this television station.
That's fair. Thank you.
Go ahead if there's other questions. Did you have one? Okay. Director Wright.
For clarity's sake, my response to Mr. Brantley was that I had just found out about the Washington Post article. And it's hard for you to find out about something that wasn't printed until the 14th. And as I believe yesterday was what? The 15th. And I don't go around reading the Washington Post, so that was my response. Now, anybody can put whatever interpretation they choose to on that, but that was a truthful statement, and I stand by it. I did not know about that on the Post article.
Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand that that some would take issue with certain things that may have been in that article, or that's what I've heard from various people over the last day or so. But I think regardless, what was contained in the article was very disturbing, very disheartening. And some of the things about I don't know that much about confidential informants, and I've talked to a number of people in the last couple of days, learned some things. So I guess one question I have is, as we get into discussions about reviewing policy and things, there also might be some things that we might discuss in an executive session at some point, but are there do we have policies that relate to confidential informants, like you have to have, there's certain people who are automatically excluded, or things like that, or if that's an inappropriate question, I'll withdraw it, but,
I think the basic thing you got to remember is that a confidential informant on drug sales is usually not a preacher in the Methodist Church.
and as a PK, and I understand that, but there's a big difference between, and some might take issue with PKs in the Methodist Church, and, there's a lot of latitude in there. So are there parameters that the police use for choosing confidential informants?
I can take a response to that, having been the prosecuting attorney. Let me tell you, the case law on it is quite clear, and police officers want to make sure that their confidential informants are reliable. The case that was just represented is a perfect example of it becoming known to the police that that person was unreliable, and so therefore they asked the prosecutor, the police department asked the prosecutor to null pros the case. So I think that goes a lot to the issue. There's ample opportunity for defense attorneys to make those inquiries in the course of a trial to determine whether or not they are reliable, and that's a pretty standard process of examination and cross-examination that occurs. And certainly our police department is trained on that and know that that's an element that will be subject to intense cross-examination on those issues. So I don't know, Mr. Carpenter, you teach at the school. I'm not sure whether there's policy beyond that, but I know that the case law is well discussed with our police officers, is it not?
It is. I usually focus on the issue of deadly force, but the law, the general thing on a confidential informant is that the information is reliable. But what has to happen is that the information has to be shared with a judge, and a judge has to conclude that it's reliable. And if and only if that threshold is met, can a warrant be issued. I know that in this particular case, and I really don't want to go any further, but there wasn't any question about the accuracy of the informant in terms of this particular defendant. What was reported was a problem with a prior case, and that's what the LRPD reported, and that's why the case ended up eventually being dismissed.
Director Richardson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess, Tom, just dovetailing the Vice Mayor's point, many of us who've done work in the community sometime know that a lot of people who have been arrested and threatened with jail time become confidential informants. And while they may not be preachers' kids prior to them doing what they were arrested for, many of them don't stop doing it while they're working for us as CIs. And I guess my question is that a prohibition? Because some of them don't always divorce themselves from the things they got that were arrested in the first place, but they use the potential of being a CI as leverage, bargaining chip to help them plead down their cases or try to work out their potential sentences or potential punishment. So I guess just dovetailing Vice Mayor's point, and I'm glad the chief is here, maybe he can explain that to us as much as he can.
I think that would be better. I can tell you what the law is, but I'm not a cop.
Well, I got you, and maybe the chief, he's the one having to operationalize all this, so maybe he can tell us the questions, Vice Mayor, that you and I are asking.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Board. What's your question, Director Richardson?
Well, I think the Vice Mayor wanted to know a little bit about the criteria. Are there any prohibitions, factors that prohibits us from using CIs? And I guess my question was, with respect to that criteria, does the fact that some of those, I don't know, Tom made a reference to Methodist preachers' kids or something to that effect. But I guess my question is, Chief, some of the people that we use as CIs, we've arrested them for charges, and there's bargaining chips for them. They agree to participate with us to help track down or engage or arrest other folks. And if they were still, I know that doesn't prohibit them because I've seen it for over 20 years or so doing work in the community. But if they continue doing the negative, nefarious activities while they're working for us, would that prohibit them, or would that have any impact on us from a liability standpoint? With their involvement with us, they're still doing the things that we arrested them for in the first place. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It is, well, number one, there's no question that the people that we're using in the capacity of an informant, significant percentage of the time are going to have criminal records. They're involved in the criminal element. There's a reason that we believe that they either have knowledge of the things that they're sharing with us or have been involved with the individuals that we are going after, which gives us the value. If you are a signed up informant and you're working for us and then you are caught trafficking in drugs, then you're going to be prosecuted the same way with John Doe would be prosecuted if he was not working with us. So it does not give you a blank check to be out here being a criminal. They would be held accountable for that. And if officers find out that that's going on, then there's going to be things done with that CI for us to make sure that other people know, because it's not uncommon for multiple officers to work with the a CI. So you would want to share that information. As the mayor and Tom alluded to, from the legal threshold for us is to be able to definitively say that the person's information is reliable, which is the threshold that we have to get over to be able to use them. And so that some of these Brady issues about their truthfulness, so those are the things that can get you knocked out of being used, which is the example that we have here that was used in that article.
That answers my question, Vice Mayor. Does that kind of hit to a
Go ahead,
follow-up?
Vice Mayor Webb.
Just kind of like to ask a follow-up question. I mean, we've gotten a lot of questions over the last couple of days about the article itself. I understand that there's a case, but is there anything else, any other comment that you want to make about the article, or is that a question that is inappropriate to ask?
Well, Mr. Carpenter would.
You know,
Yes.
the mayor's, among other things, the chief's been sued personally in this lawsuit. So we can sit here and ask him questions, but you're basically having a deposition for the people trying to get money from him and from the city, and I don't know that that's fair. That's my view.
Okay.
Well, not to further depose him, Chief, and not to toot my horn or the horns of those who work with us on this. This seems like, without just on the outside looking in, that the ordinance we discussed a while ago with respect to deprioritizing marijuana, and I don't know the investigation, but with deprioritizing marijuana arrests, the ordinance that we passed, we failed to pass, and since we failed to pass, has been adopted by Oklahoma City, New York City, even Jacksonville, Arkansas, has adopted the same kind of priority with respect to deprioritizing marijuana arrests and kind of lowering that to better utilize our manpower and woman power within the police department, not legitimizing or encouraging or legalizing marijuana use, but just with respect to how we deploy and utilize our force, particularly when we've always claimed and harmored and whined about us having a shortage on our police staff, is just figuring out a way to better utilize them. So that was the impetus for me introducing that ordinance. I thank you, Vice Mayor, for supporting it a few months ago. Move to adjourn.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed say nay. Or an adjournment. Thank you.